What is going on, everyone? You are all very welcome to the Gaelic Gridiron podcast, the final podcast of the regular season 2025. Don't worry, we will be back for the playoffs, but it was indeed the last weekend of the regular season, the last weekend of Red Zone for fans of Scott Hansen. We might see him back on our screens as well. But what a crazy weekend it was in a season that has been absolutely mental. And we are looking forward to getting into that now and talking about the big results, the big news items that have happened in the past kind of 24 hours. Jimmy English, James Kellett and Connor Tate, delighted to be back here with you wherever you are watching and listening. Thank you very much to our sponsors as well, Print My Pint, for their support all season. Make sure you check them out on their website and their social media if you're having an event, a special occasion in the new year. It's always something nice to have there. Lads, I mean, I don't even know where to start. I think that the best place to start is Saturday night football, the Battle of the West, not Thursday night, as James correctly pointed out. It's a good thing you caught me, James, before I made a fool of myself again. Seahawks defeating the 49ers 13-3, winning the NFC West division and the number one seed in the NFC in the process. And look, I'll put my hand up here and say that I got this prediction completely wrong. I was hot on the 49ers just the way that Brock Purdy and CMC and George Kittle had been playing coming into this one. But massive credit, James, to the Seahawks defense. They came out and they shut down all the weapons in San Fran and Santa Clara. And there's a very good chance now that they will be back in San Francisco in the Bay Area in about a month's time for the Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, the bye week is just massive. We saw how much Kyle Shanahan wanted it. He wasn't hiding that. I think you put it perfectly. The Seahawks defense was what won them the game. I think we were discussing it last week, and I know Purdy was so good against the Bears, but they gave up an awful lot of points and they give up an awful lot of things easily. The Seahawks defense do not do that. They pressured him from the very start, 9 sacks. He looked lost out there, and I don't think it's his fault because we've seen a lot of quarterbacks look lost. No Trent Williams. Many times people have noted that if he misses some of his weapons, Purdy's not the same guy. That's completely false. He's not the same guy when he has no Trent Williams. And that just happened to coincide last year with when Debo was out and McCaffrey was out. And people kind of blamed it on the lack of skill players, but it was the lack of Trent Williams. And if he's not good to go against the Eagles, the 49ers season is done, because that Eagles defensive front is unbelievably good. And they arrested a lot of players at the weekend too. So, yeah, I feel for the Niners right now because they've had a battled season with a lot of injuries. And if Trent Williams can't make it in the playoffs, that's make or break really for me.
Connor, speaking of quarterbacks who haven't, I mean, you know, James mentioned there that it's not entirely Brock Purdy's fault, the result there on Saturday night. Another quarterback who needs to basically have a flawless playoff run is Sam Darnold on the side of the Seahawks. He's been up and down all season. He has been inconsistent, I think, is the best way. When he's hot, he's hot, but when he makes mistakes, he makes a lot of mental mistakes, he gets down on himself. That is trouble for the Seahawks. They have to rely, I suppose, a lot on the running backs, Zach Charbonnet and Walker there, running riot over the 49ers defense, a depleted 49ers defense.
Yeah.
But like, if the Seahawks can get Darnold, you know, back into his kind of mid-season form, they have every chance of going on a run now in the divisional round and into the conference as well.
They have every chance of going on a run, full stop. I'll say it, Legion of Boom Mark II. You know, the names aren't as flashy on the Seattle defense as they were all those years ago, but the defense wins championships, and the Seattle defense is, along with Houston, it's the best defense in the NFL. So Sam Darnold needs to be solid. He needs to be consistent, but he doesn't need to be flashy. He scored 13 points in San Francisco the other night, and they cruised to victory. It wasn't even particularly close. So I like Seattle, especially with the 1 seed now going into Lumen Field. You got to like him. The only thing I'll say is that there's a high probability it's going to be 2 NFC West opponents for them in the divisional and the conference and the championship game because of how strong the NFC West is. So they've got to get through San Francisco again, potentially, and the Rams again, potentially. Because I just think those 3 teams, especially with Chicago and Philadelphia showing this week, they're the 3 best teams in the NFC. And with the way now we know the playoff picture, we don't have to predict it or guess it. The way it's shaped up, it may well be a gauntlet of NFC West teams for Seattle, even with the bye. However, outstanding, proved me wrong, proved us all wrong. I think nobody called that Seattle win, and they have to be the favorite now to go to the Super Bowl from the NFC side. James, did you call it? Did you call the Seattle win?
I did.
We can see him. We can see him grinning there. He
I
was
can
the
see the
lone
grin.
wolf.
Yeah, all right.
He was
I
the lone wolf last Monday predicting the Seahawks when he
There you
knew
go.
something we didn't do. I'll tell you actually something interesting about the Seahawks. I saw this online after they won on Saturday night. The Seahawks have been NFC champions. This is their fourth time as the number one seed in the NFC. Each of the previous 3 times they have gone to the Super Bowl, and I think they've won twice. Maybe I might be wrong on that. They certainly won one during the Pete Carroll era, so it's a good omen. They have there is what you call it, a pedigree there, a precedent there for the Seahawks now. And if everything can come together, if Sam Darnold can continue playing at the high level that we've seen him play at and find that vein of form, I think it's definitely going to be the Seahawks representing the NFC in the Super Bowl in a few weeks' time.
They got there twice during the Pete Carroll era. The first one, they demolished the Broncos. And the second one was the infamous Malcolm Butler pick on the goal line. But yeah, look, Lumen Field, or was CenturyLink was what it used to be called. Now it's Lumen Field. Very, very difficult place to go and win a football game. So the home field advantage is stronger in Seattle than it would be in other places. So that 1 seed and the bye week with it too is humongous. Huge, huge, huge win, and delighted for Sam Darnold.
So the Seahawks weren't the only team that sealed their fate on across the weekend. Obviously, they won the NFC West and the number one seed in the NFC. The Jaguars absolutely demolishing the Titans, and they could easily be the number one seed if things had worked out differently in the AFC. Trashing the Titans and seeding the number 3 seed. The Patriots having their way with the Dolphins, who were playing a host of backups, and their future is. A lot of futures up in the air there, including their quarterback and head coach, Mike McDaniel. And Quinn Ewer is playing very well, I think, in relief for what he is. So the Patriots now sitting at the number 2 seed. The Steelers and the Ravens, which was an absolute wild ending. And we're going to get into that now in a second. Sealing the AFC North, 4th seed in the playoffs in the AFC. And breaking Ravens' hearts in the process. Let's talk about the Steelers-Ravens in the AFC North. 26-24, the final score, an absolutely wild ending. My heart rate, I don't know, didn't come down for several hours after that game, to be honest with you. I think it was up during the entire game. But James, I mean, just what a bonkers way for the Steelers to get to the playoffs. I mean, it was just insane, right?
Yeah, the ending was crazy. I'm glad we got that because the 2 Saturday games were, the first game was some awful football for the fact that one of those teams get into the playoffs. Second game we just talked about was kind of disappointing. It wasn't as close as we thought it may be. And then this one looked to be kind of a damn squib up until the 4th quarter, and then it just exploded.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say, in terms of evaluating the win, because it was just 2 incredibly bad secondaries going up against each other, and it made for great viewing. And I'm glad Boswell wasn't the reason that the team lost, because he's dragged the Steelers through so many games that it wouldn't have been fair, I don't think, on him to get the blame for that missed extra point had Luke made his kick. And it's just crazy to see back-to-back missed kicks, and that catch by Isaiah Likely to set it up. I thought, no, that's it, surely. But the big moment got to Luke. Unfortunately for him, he's had a great season, but the Steelers benefited and they roll on another season. Mike Tomlin beating his chest at the end. It was just crazy.
Connor, it was Tyler Loop's first missed field goal inside 50 yards this season. I mean, it's and like kickers are paid in the NFL. They're paid handsomely to perform in those kind of pressure moments. What do you think he was going through his head as he was walking out there to make a potentially game-winning field goal and send his team to the playoffs? And it's so much pressure in that situation to make that kick, right?
I'm sure he went through his normal process. However, you cannot simulate that kind of pressure. It does not matter how many times you do it on the practice field, how many drills you do, how many run-out drills you do. You cannot simulate that kind of pressure. You're in the moment. You try and go through your motion. You try and go through your process. You miss at the ball, and that's it. And I got 5 words to sum this up. All my analysis, all that, this, that, and the other. A win is a win.
And that's something that the Steelers have been, James, that they've been kind of getting those kind of close wins all season. I think they've only scored more than 30 points on 2 occasions in the entire season. And something else that's been consistently happening for the Steelers this season is not scoring any points on their first possessions. I think it took them 4 offensive possessions to actually score a touchdown. They had no touchdowns in the first half. They only had a field goal via Boswell. And then it took a few kind of big plays from both Aaron Rodgers and Jalen Warren to kind of jumpstart the offense. Aaron Rodgers hitting Adam Thielen, but that's spectacular over the shoulder catch, and then hitting Pat Fryermuth a few plays later down the seam to kind of get things going. So that's something that's going to hamper the Steelers going into the playoffs, especially against a defense like the Texans, because if they get behind on the Texans and they don't score points early and often, it's going to be another wild card exit for Mike Tomlin and the Steelers in the playoffs.
Yeah, the recipe is there, I think, as well. Like, just if you stop the run, Rodgers finds it difficult to get anything going down the field. I know Metcalf is going to be there, but it's Derek
Thank God.
Stingley is not the same as...
Absolutely no deep threat for the past 2 games, and we saw how much it affected them against the Browns as well.
But I don't think it's going to be something that's viable as a game plan against this Texans defense. Even if he's on their number 2, or you're looking at even Jalen Petrie, if he drops back onto, like, anybody in that Texan secondary, you would trust them against anybody the Steelers can put back there. So an effective run game is going to be key, which is very hard to establish against the Texans. So it's a tough matchup for the Steelers. I think they did well to get to this point because the Ravens had kind of momentum behind them going into this game. And as Connor said, a win is a win, and you get into the playoffs, it's no mean feat. And for Rodgers to do it at this age is very good. But I do think, unfortunately, for Steelers fans, there should be a lot of people listening to this. I don't think there's a recipe to get any further against this Texans defense. And CJ Stroud has an incredible deep ball. So that's going to be something that they look to take advantage of as well against the Steelers defense.
Well, it was the secondary that was at fault, really, Connor. For many of the Ravens' big plays. I mean, we saw Zay Flowers had 2 wide open scores. One, the second one, he was completely uncovered. I don't know if it was a blown assignment or the wrong kind of defense. I mean, Jalen Ramsey is looking around after, going kind of, where is everybody? And I'm like, that's your job. You're a safety. You get back there, you know. So it's like Connor says, it's
the same play call twice as well. It's inexcusable, really.
Exactly, same play.
It's unforgivable, but in these moments, as I say, you cannot simulate that kind of pressure, right? In these moments, and as James said, like, it was one of those games where it was a damn squib until the 4th quarter, and then it just erupted, and you just had the feeling they were going to ping pong touchdowns off each other, and that's what they did. It's momentum, and it works both ways. Like, I can't. I've been involved in it as well in games where it's just going nowhere, and then all of a sudden you're ping ponging scores. You just feed off it, man, and for whatever reason, it on this day, it was the defense that completely blew it for both sides. And then both kickers blew it.
I think it was more so the secondary for the Steelers. I think the linebackers in front 7 had a great game because TJ Watt was back after, I don't know, missing 2 games with a collapsed lung.
Look, they had their moments, but on the plays where Lamar hit those big balls to Flowers, he had plenty of time, with the exception of the one where he was in the grasp. I'll give you that one, right? But and that was a miraculous play from Jackson. But he had a fair amount of time. I would expect less time from a Pittsburgh Steelers front 7, if I'm being totally honest. They're going to need to play very well next week. This is a good Houston team. What I will say is that, and I never thought I'd be saying this at the start of the season, Aaron Rodgers is going to be watching a lot of Riley Leonard tape this week. Because Riley Leonard had an awesome game against that Houston. He scored 30 points against the Texans. And he went off. He put on some serious tape. He might be playing starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts next year if Daniel Jones isn't ready to go and they don't bring him back. He was really, really good. So he needs to watch that and say, okay, what did they do? Because he's the only guy who's had real success against that Texas defense in a long, long time.
I think Riley Leonard was
just on the game. The matchup is the O-lines are very different as well. Like, the Ravens O-line is way better than the Texans. So I think if the Steelers perform at a similar level along the front, they'll get more success than they did against the Ravens. But I do agree with you, Jimmy, that it was the DBs that let them down. It was the front 7 was not at fault. I think that they kind of played it to the best ability that they could against somebody like Lamar, who's hard to contain. But CJ Stroud is very different, and that could be a recipe. Go after this weekend O-line.
I think Mike Tirico at one point he was saying that the Steelers were more worried about what Derrick Henry was going to do than Lamar Jackson. But like Lamar Jackson proved that if you give him enough time, he'll get the deep ball down there. So I think that they found a way to exploit the Steelers' weaknesses. Just on your point about Riley Leonard, I don't really particularly think we need to discuss that game because I think at that stage the Texans are playing a lot of backups, which obviously we're not going to see in the wild card round. But Riley Leonard, I think, was the first Colts quarterback in history to have more. I think it was 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns, or more than that in the one game. And he's a former Notre Dame and Duke product as well. So great to see him having success there. And it'll be very interesting to see how the Colts situation plays out with Daniel Jones and his heel and Shane Steichen being brought back as well next year. So I think the Colts were one of the hottest teams in the NFL at the start of the season, and they kind of fell off after Munich. So it's unfortunate.
I showed up, and they didn't win a game ever again.
Connor jinxed the Colts.
Yeah.
Well, look, Steelers hosting the Texans on Monday Night Football next Monday. I'm sick of these late games. We're going to have to stay up again next Monday to watch that one. I'm definitely going to have a stiffer challenge in the Texans. Lads, Broncos versus Chargers. Broncos stealing the number 1 spot in the AFC. James is shaking his head. I'm winding him up here. Just going to wind him up and let him go. They're the number one seed in the AFC, technically, on a pure technicality, according to James. But are they the favourites to win the AFC and advance to the Super Bowl? James, go.
No, they're not winning the game. Like they barely beat Trey Lance, and they were like, I mean, I've said this like last week as well. They barely beat Chris Oladukan for the Chiefs when they were literally intentionally trying to lose, which we saw them do again against the Raiders. There's no way you lose to this Raiders team without intentionally doing so. They tried the same thing against the Broncos on Christmas Day. The Broncos barely beat them. I've said it as well about when they played the Raiders themselves, when they played the Giants. They're not good enough. And yeah, they're the 1 seed. I just don't know how is all these 1-score games. Like if you look at last season, the Chiefs had an extortionate amount of 1-score games. It came back to bite them. This year they were actually technically a better team statistically, but they only got 6 wins. This could be a similar situation with the Broncos. I would watch for them to fall off next year because this is not sustainable. And I don't think Bo Nix is good enough to drag them out of the fire, and the defense has gone missing for the last. I know the Chargers back up; they managed to get them to 3 points, but it's Trey Lance. Come on, that's not a real game. But the previous like 5 weeks before that, the defense has gone missing compared to how it started the season. So maybe the bye week helps them recover in some way, but I just can't see them winning against the other 3 elite teams that come out of the next round.
Connor, your thoughts on Bo Nix's quarterback play? I have the stats here in front of me. 14 of 23, 141 yards and 4 sacks, 8 rushes for 49 yards, and just 2 plays of over 20 yards. Like James said, it's just not good enough to do any damage in the playoffs.
They've gotten the job done every week in, week out, and they've beaten what they need to beat. They're the worst performing 1 seed in a long time, right? I think one of Houston or Buffalo will win next week, and I don't think the Chargers will win, which mathematically it'll either be Houston or Buffalo working on that premise that goes to Mile High. I think either of those teams will beat the Broncos. I think the Broncos will be one and done. The only way I see the Broncos getting through is if somehow the Chargers knock down New England, and I don't see that happening either. So I think they're going. I'm with James. They're one and done. I think in the playoffs they haven't been good enough. They have not been good enough throughout the regular season. They have stumbled to this 14-3 record. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's actually going to be very interesting because Josh Allen came in for 1 play yesterday, a ceremonial snap, and then was rested because they saw the Bills obviously saw the result down in Jacksonville and figured that there's no point in trying to get a higher seed here. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. No matter who goes to Denver, but like it's not looking good for Sean Payton and the Broncos at the minute.
Heck, it could be Pittsburgh. If all 3 of the wildcards go, it's Pittsburgh, right? Yeah. And you might even like Pittsburgh's chances in Denver. To be honest, I don't know. Denver, I don't see them winning the game.
And for Bo Nix to play that bad yesterday, like the Chargers rested Derwin James, Tui Pilato, Deion Henley wasn't even playing. Like they rested everybody. So how could you manage to be that bad when you played your starters? It doesn't add up.
Trey Lance is an interesting one as well. When he was coming out of college, I was so high on Trey Lance, and he gets drafted in the number one pick. I think it was San Francisco drafted him number one overall, and then he just was an absolute bust. And you could see it again yesterday. He's no more than a serviceable backup, really. It's one of these kind of sad stories where a college star is highly touted and then gets to the NFL and is just a complete shambles, really.
Trey Lance got really, really unlucky, man, and people look over this, but in his second season, he was the starting quarterback of the 49ers, right? And he got the full off season, all the reps and all this, and in week 2, Kyle Shanahan ran a stupid QB power up the middle where he broke his leg. And that was it. Yeah. Garoppolo comes in, gets 10 weeks, and then it's Brock Purdy, and we all know what happened with Brock Purdy, and that's a fantastic story. But in order to have a fantastic story in the NFL, somebody has to lose out, and that was Trey Lance. And his career's just spiraled after it. Now, limited chances he's had, has he been very, very good in them? No. But he got a week and a half as a starter before he snapped his leg in half. So I have a lot of sympathy for Trey Lance.
Very good point.
I have a lot of sympathy for him, man. Sometimes you're just bloody unlucky as a human being. Trey Lance is one of them.
He often gets painted as the one guy that Kyle Shanahan couldn't work with as well, which is not fair because he didn't get the chance really to show what he could have done with him. So it's not a fair kind of label to give him. That often the media does because, it's the one-liner that you can say, oh, Kyle Shanahan isn't perfect, but if you had a full season with him, it would have been probably a different story because we know what Kyle Shanahan can do.
Well, one game as well that I want to touch on before we kind of get into two games. I want to talk about briefly, just talk about the Jaguars, the Patriots, and the Dolphins, but also the main game that I was watching yesterday, and I think Baker Mayfield was watching quite anxiously. I don't know if you saw his wife put up the video on Instagram on the NFL reposted it where he was absolutely stressing out, and I can't say I blame him. Ultimately, it was the Falcons that came in on top of the Saints. And sending the Carolina Panthers with an 8-9 record, the 4th seed in the NFC, going to take on the Los Angeles Chargers next week in the wild card round. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes when we preview that. But that was just such a weird game as well, seeing those two teams going back and forth, and seeing all the Carolina Panthers fans in the stadium as well. I mean, but the future looks bright, James, for the Saints. The past few weeks, I suppose the last kind of 4 or 5 weeks, they've really come on since Tyler Shock's come in and taken over as starting quarterback, and he is looking like the likely candidate to be the starting quarterback going into 2026 as well.
Yeah, he looks great, and Kellen Moore has done a good job with him since he's come in. It's a pity we didn't see him from the start of the season because he was ready to go week 1, and the fact that he is older for a rookie quarterback kind of pushes home that fact more. I would have liked to see a full season of him because they're playing in games at this point of the season where there's nothing to play for, and it was kind of a summation of easier opponents as well that they played against, but nothing away from him. He had an excellent few games. Some of the throw he made for that last touchdown yesterday was absolutely beautiful. The catch as well to go with it, gorgeous, like one hand pinned and he caught it with the other, pinned it to his body. But I just want to see him from the start of next season and see what he can do with a full season when the games really matter. And I think he can be good, especially with Kellen Moore. But I want to see it from an important time in the season onwards.
Yeah, that catch was probably play of the year, Connor. They're definitely a candidate for play of the year. Juwan Jennings, I never get the name right. I always get him mixed up. But the fact that he caught it basically in the crook of his elbow, got his 2 feet down, and then somehow secured the ball. It was insane to watch. And I think it was funny watching that game, knowing both teams had no reason to play, only for trying to get a divisional win for their opponents, but they still went out and played a very good game. And it'll be interesting as well to see if Kirk Cousins is still the starting quarterback for the Falcons next year.
Yeah, great catch, even better throw. I mean, I cannot iterate how good that throw was. It was sensational. You say they had nothing to play for, and I can assure you neither gave a damn who they sent to the playoffs or not, right? But the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints hate each other. This is one of the most vicious rivalries in the NFL. You think Bears, Packers, one of them, but there's visceral hatred between these two organizations. So when they play each other hard. So they have plenty to play for. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where Kirk Cousins goes, man. I think Kirk Cousins maybe played himself into a starting role somewhere in the NFL next season if he's willing to take a play cut. He can still ball. The arm is still there. It's not Cam Ward heat, but he knows where to put the football. He's like Phillip Rivers, but he can still get it there. So I like Kirk, and I think he's played himself into a starting role. Do Atlanta keep him? I have no idea. That contract is so big in Atlanta, they're probably going to let him walk, and I would assume Penix will be back in time to start the regular season. But somewhere maybe that is quarterback needy, maybe calling Kirk Cousins and saying, "Are you willing to take a bit of a pay cut here, buddy? Because you can still deal."
Back to your Vikings. You take them?
Oh wow! No, do you know what? On the topic of the Minnesota Vikings, JJ McCarthy played well again, but he got hurt again.
Well, the Vikings were basically like you saw what Sean put into our group there. It was basically a preseason game for the.
It was a preseason game, but Minnesota are 5-0 since they got eliminated from playoff contention.
It was nice to see JJ finally get a connection with Justin Jefferson as well.
It was until he checked himself out of the game halfway through again because he couldn't finish it because he was hurt. And nobody is questioning JJ McCarthy's toughness. He's one of the toughest players in the NFL. But when it comes to his durability, he hasn't proven he can stay on the football field for any length of time. If I'm the Minnesota Vikings, I'm calling the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm saying, Joe Burrow, what's it going to take? What's it going to take for Joe Burrow? And I'm doing a like-for-like trade. And, obviously there's going to be a lot of capital going the other way towards Cincinnati. But that's the guy I'm looking for. This Minnesota team is too good right now to spend another year on JJ McCarthy, in my opinion. But if you're going anywhere, it's Joe Burrow because he's discontent. They were terrible again on Sunday. Get him into Kevin O'Connell's system. He is going with Justin Jefferson. I think it's too good to not go for if you're Minnesota.
You'd hate to be Joe Burrow right now on on Myles Garrett's highlight reel, getting the sack crown yesterday, 23 sacks. I mean, that's I think is going to be the pinpoint or like the emphasis on Joe Burrow's season. Is he was the quarterback who Myles Garrett sacked to set the single season sack record. 23 sacks, likely ceiling in the process defensive player of the year, yeah. James. But that game between the Bengals and Browns was just awful love to watch.
Yeah, and I think if there's any quarterback in the league who wouldn't care, it's Joe Burrow. Like he openly said before the game that he was in situational football. Sometimes it's better to take a sack than to do something stupid like throw a ball up for a DB to make a play.
And he gave himself up.
But it was the right thing to do in that situation. There's nothing else he could have done there. He didn't want to get hurt. I think it may look like, he just gave him that sack. We're not talking about Lawrence or who had the sack record before it joined with TJ Watt. God, my head. Strahan. It wasn't that Strahan sack that he got that was just didn't look like in any way like it was legitimate. This was actually a sack. The speed guard came off the line. I think it was a 0.17 second get off. Usain Bolt gets off the line in the Olympics at 0.165 seconds. It's and the size of Myles Garrett compared to Usain Bolt, like you can't take it away from him. And I think Joe Burrow probably. He won't mind too much, and Garrett will share a drink with him one day over it. I'm sure they'll be delighted.
It was his 23rd sack of the season. It was probably his best sack of the season too. His get-off was sensational. I was surprised Cincinnati were trying to pass the ball, if I'm being totally honest. 5 minutes to go in the game, I thought, just run the ball each play. And the game is over.
I think Burrow had two pick sixes as well, didn't he?
He did, yeah. That's how they got their points. Look, it's great for Myles. He got a huge brand deal out of it too that was all set up. I was surprised with Cincinnati's choice, especially given you're so close. If he got it in the first quarter, well, fair enough. 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. You're throwing screens, quick slants, and running the ball. But huge credit to Myles Garrett, man. Generational player, generational season, and he deserved it. If Cincinnati had run the ball out for the last few minutes, it would have been harsh on Garrett the way it had worked out in the end. So I think the right thing happened, and congratulations.
Yeah, definitely one of the most dominant defensive ends we've seen. Generational talent, as you say. And like he was asked, I saw a video during the week where he was asked about his Mount Rushmore defensive ends. And he mentions, the likes of, well, he didn't mention Lawrence Taylor, obviously, who's a technically a linebacker. Aaron Donald's in there. You had Reggie White from the Eagles back in the 80s and 90s, and he rightfully, I think, put himself up there because now I would have put J.J. Watt up there as well as one of the best defensive ends in the NFL history. But Myles Garrett definitely deserves to be up there in the best to ever do it.
He's got the record. Says it all.
2 points, Connor, that I actually want to go back to that you mentioned that are very interesting. And one is Kirk Cousins' future in the NFL, because I can potentially see a scenario where the Steelers are. Now, there has been talk that Aaron Rodgers might come back. The rumor is that he might come back for another season. If he doesn't, and the playoffs, whatever amount of playoff appearances the Steelers have is his last hurrah, could you potentially see the Steelers going after Kirk Cousins? Or do they take him as a bridge quarterback and draft a quarterback coming out? And that could be a very interesting situation for Kirk Cousins.
It really depends on what Kirk's mindset is. Kirk wants to play football for as long as possible because his kids are getting to an age where they're starting to remember him actually playing. And he said he's been quoted saying that is one of his main motivators. Now, with the way Kirk Cousins goes about contract situations, you wouldn't think that was a main motivator. But who knows? If that really is, then he'll take a pay cut and somebody will take him because he's playing a high-level quarterback. It will be a bridge quarterback situation, a team that's probably drafting one as well. But I think the door is open for Kirk in a number of places for him to go and certainly compete for a starting job or straight away be the day one starter and with a bit like Penix 2 years ago, train him up sort of thing. I think that's definitely possible. Pittsburgh is totally a possible landing spot if Aaron doesn't come back.
James, what do you reckon? Could you envision a scenario where we see Kirk Cousins repping the black and gold next year? I mean, the Steelers have taken risks with aging quarterbacks. We saw the Russell Wilson experiment didn't work out too well a couple of seasons ago. The Aaron Rodgers situation has largely played out because when Aaron Rodgers is at his best, it's like he's 20 years younger and he can still sling it. He can still win games. He can still put teams on his back and basically get guaranteed, well, not guaranteed them victories, but get them victories. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. But like Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, I mean, in what kind of scenario do you think the Steelers would be better off at quarterback?
I don't know. I feel like maybe going into next season, Cousins could provide you with a bit more than Rodgers can, given their age. But at the same time, I'm not sure if there's any reason to move on from Rodgers if he wants to stay, because he's got you into the playoffs. Having him there for another season while you move towards whatever is coming down the future is better than changing course again. Because then if Cousins has one good season, maybe you go with him for another season. And then who are you looking at next? The next aging quarterback down the road. Fans don't want to see this. There needs to be like a clear plan. So I think it could be a situation where Rodgers or Cousins ends up with the Steelers and the other one ends up with the Vikings, just as a kind of option outside of McCarthy, because Rodgers wanted to go to the Vikings. Cousins has already been there, and you can't rely on McCarthy's help, as you said, Connor. So I think they're both perfect for those two teams.
There is no way Kirk Cousins ends back with the Minnesota Vikings. That is not happening. I can tell you that.
Kevin O'Connell, the head coach, anyway.
Not a chance. Not a chance. And they had a good relationship. They had a good season and a half before he blew his Achilles out. There is no chance Kirk Cousins ends back to Minnesota Vikings. I'll happily eat my words if this happens, by the way. You can send this clip viral if you want to. But I do not see that happening one bit whatsoever. Aaron, I don't see... If Rodgers was going, it was last year. That was the time to do it with all the hype and the weapons. By all accounts, Minnesota really weren't in on Aaron. Aaron was waiting to pick up the call, and it never came, by all accounts. So I don't see either of those happening. Joe Burrow or stick it out with JJ.
It's not going to be Joe. He's not going to go to Minnesota right now.
The thing is, why wouldn't he go to Minnesota? Because Minnesota have all the weapons. Justin Jefferson, his buddies there. Kevin O'Connell, offensive guru. Why on earth? Why would he stay in Cincinnati?
Because he's allowed to do whatever he wants there. He runs the whole franchise. But
whatever he wants.
I feel like Tom Brady was in New England. Tom Brady was basically general manager, head coach. Well, not head coach, but he was essentially the unquestioned leader in that locker room. And I'm not sure if Joe Burrow is quite at the level of Tom Brady yet, but I imagine it's a similar situation where, like, even in like Patrick Mahomes
what did Tom Brady
in
have for 20 years in New England?
Bill Belichick.
Well,
Yeah,
but a great offensive line. Brady never went through a spell where his offensive line was porous. Joe Burrow has had a porous offensive line in Cincinnati the entirety of his time there. It doesn't work. We know the Chargers aren't going to win next week because their offensive line is porous, right? If you don't have the line, and they haven't had it in Cincinnati.
13 different combinations for the Los Angeles Chargers, the defensive line this year.
Yeah, aside from losing every week, which must be pissing Joe Burrow off, his body must be hurting like hell, man. He gets hit more than any other quarterback in the NFL in the past 6 years. So
yeah, I just don't think he goes to the Vikings, though, because he's the type of guy that goes to a big market. He's not going to go to Minnesota. I just can't see it, because in Cincinnati, what they have there as well, that Tom Brady had was Belichick. The Bengals have Zach Taylor, who's basically Burrow is the offensive play caller there.
I completely I disagree with the big market thing, and I get it. It's not Dallas, but if Joe Burrow goes to the Minnesota Vikings, NFL Network are spending their entire offseason talking about the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah,
that's the hottest team in the NFL.
Vikings end up with Mac Jones. Have to. Let's
oh my God! Let's not even get into this right now. We don't have the time of the podcast. There's a whole podcast dedicated in the off season to where, let's save all this material for when we have nothing to talk about in a few months' time. All right, because we only have about 15 minutes left, and I still want to talk about Black Monday, or mini Black Monday. Black Monday is typically the day after the NFL season ends, which is the regular season, which ends today.
Today,
today, and we've seen several head coaches fired already. Pete Carroll is gone. Raheem Morris is gone from the Falcons. Kevin Stefanski is gone from the Browns. And before we came on, it was announced that the Cardinals had fired Rich Gannon, former Eagles offensive coordinator. So, James, I mean, we've kind of seen, teams already exploring head coaching options and interviewing different coordinators. I know Vance Joseph has been mentioned as a potential head coaching candidate. The Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator has also been brought up. I'm just kind of wondering in what direction do you see these teams going? I mean, I think Pete Carroll, for example, or even Raheem Morris, the Falcons, they went on a 4-game winning streak towards the end of the season. Had a really good game against the Falcons, against the Saints yesterday. He was definitely coaching for his job. So you have to wonder if some of these teams are kind of having a bit of a knee-jerk reaction and trying to get instant results, or should they have given their respective coaches more time? Kevin Stefanski as well. I mean, great coach.
Yeah, I think myself and Connor were actually texting about Raheem Morris, and we both thought he was going to stay based on what had happened. So I was surprised at that one, especially given they won and they have a great roster. And then they got rid of their GM, who also built a roster, which, the whole thing, that one doesn't make a whole lot of sense because I'm not sure what way they go. The Carroll one, although it is difficult and everyone loves him, and, it's sad to see him go, that was 100% the right thing to do, because you're going to be drafting your young quarterback next. You want your coach, your young offensive-minded coach coming in, getting Mendoza, training him up from the start, and having him build the offense the way he wants. And Carroll was only going to be there for another year or two max. So it is tough, but he got a payday out of it, and it's sad to see, but I think it was the right idea. Browns, on the other hand, Stefanski, 2-time coach of the year. They had Baker Mayfield there. They let him go. They brought in Deshaun Watson. They drafted God knows how many awful quarterbacks. They gave him Kenny Pickett. They gave him Joe Flacco again after he did a good job with him, this time a lot older. Stefanski has had an awful run, and he's still done the best job he could have. He's going to be the hottest name on the market right now, outside of if the Ravens get rid of John Harbaugh. That would be the hottest name. But for now, it's Stefanski, for sure, without a doubt.
Connor, it's a bit of a bloodbath today.
Always is on Black Monday, man. I'd say the hottest name on the market is not actually a head coach. I'd say it's Brian Flores, defensive coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings. That's the guy. He's 100% going to be a head coach next year. The question is where. The hottest. It's B-Flow.
The only reason I'm not sure about him is because of the issues with the NFL. I think he's probably the best candidate, but just that those things play into it. Yeah, those things
somebody won't be fussed about that. And he has years of tape, awesome tape, but the last 4 weeks of tape is like, wow, you talk about a guy that was coaching for a promotion, Brian Flores. I mean, holy smokes, the tape that Minnesota have put on defensively over the last 4 weeks is nuts. As for the other guys, look, yeah, I thought Morris was going to get another shot at it, especially with the quarterback going down the middle of the season, but he didn't.
Well,
We're in the
yeah, I
world of
mean,
instant gratification.
what about, and this is an interesting one that has kind of been bandied about a little bit. What about Philip Rivers going from high school coach to NFL coach, head coach, for that fact? That
No,
could be a very interesting one.
no. Hey, listen, I would absolutely hire Philip Rivers, but I wouldn't have him as a head coach. I'd have him as an advisor on the sideline for my quarterback, some sort of advisory role. The guy is just brilliant, but actually thrusting him into a head coaching situation, there's so much more. And you can't focus on the offense when you're the head coach because you have to do X, Y, and Z. So get him in some capacity, but not as a head coach.
We saw him on James in the sideline yesterday, coaching up Riley Leonard. He had the earpiece on. He looked very comfortable in that kind of position, in the kind of um, quarterback guru. And what better mentor for a young starting quarterback, potential starting quarterback like Riley Leonard, who has the arm, who has the potential to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, despite being a later round draft pick, that having an absolute gunslinger like Philip Rivers and his track record as his QB coach, as an offensive specialist, as an offensive play caller. They're very similar quarterbacks as well, in Riley Leonard and Philip Rivers.
Yeah, I think Connor made a great point that he could be your kind of quarterback advisor or quarterback coach, whatever he wants to do, really, because he doesn't have to take any role. He wants to coach his kids. He even said,
Mm.
like, back in with his son in high school next season. I don't think he's too bothered unless it is the Colts because he has a special connection with them. Unless he wants to take up that kind of advisory role, be it even in the off season, I could see that happening, but any more than that, I'm not sure. But Leonard did show off, as Connor said, he showed off a lot of talent, and he's good with his legs too. We saw that at Notre
Yeah,
Dame.
he's a great rusher. Like, he had so many rushing touchdowns in one season at Notre Dame. I mean, he was just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a really important skill as well in the modern NFL. So
Mm-hmm.
he'll for sure get a chance next season if the Colts maybe they want to run it back with Daniel Jones and he sits on the sidelines and we start off with Riley Leonard. I'm not sure, but Shane Steichen is great, and if he had Philip Rivers as some kind of an advisor there too, I think it only stands to benefit the team.
It's a nice problem to have for Indianapolis that they didn't think they had a few weeks ago. So,
Yeah.
great performance.
Well, Anthony Richardson's time in Indianapolis is definitely done. We know that much with the options at quarterback now. We've seen what both of them can do. As we tend to do at this point of the podcast, we preview next week's games, the upcoming slate of games. And as we are at week 18 now and the NFL regular season has come to a close, it is time to preview the wild card slate of games coming up starting on Saturday, January 10th at 9:30 Irish time. And if you are listening, we will possibly do a more in-depth kind of preview podcast later on in this week, time permitting and availability permitting. But this is the best time of the year, lads. It's playoff football. It's win or go home. You're playing for keeps now. This is what teams have been playing for all season. Kicking us off on Saturday at 9:30 Irish time, Panthers Rams, followed later at 1:00 on Sunday morning by the Bears and the Packers. I mean, obviously, I think for me, Connor, the Panthers and Rams is only really going to go one way. We saw what the Rams did against the Cardinals yesterday. Matt Stafford was back at his finest, slinging deep balls to Puka Nacua. They have two fantastic running backs there in Blake Corum and Kyron Williams as well. One of the best running back tandems in the league. It's going to be a tough ask for the Panthers, with a losing record coming into the playoffs as well, to do anything against Los Angeles.
It's going to be a very tough ask, but if only there was valid tape that they could go back and watch. Oh wait, there is. They beat them last month in Charlotte, right? So for all the places for the Rams to go, I know it's almost a de facto bye because they're 8-9, but they lost in Charlotte. So the matchup is maybe not as good or as easy as it may seem on paper. I'll still go with the Rams, but there is that little caveat there where you're like, well, maybe history can repeat itself, but I'll go with Stafford and the Rams.
Yeah, I agree with you, 100%. It was the turnover battle as well that won the game that day for the Panthers. Rams aren't going to make that same mistake twice.
Matt Stafford might just save his MVP candidacy as well. It kind of dipped towards, the last few weeks of the season when coming into week kind of 15, 16 there, but he could very well steal the crown back from Drake May and the chance of MVP in Foxborough, Massachusetts. Bears Packers then on late on Saturday night, Sunday morning. Third time the Bears and Packers have met in the space of a month, I believe. This is going to be a great game, Connor.
It is, and Green Bay have fallen off a cliff because they've had 2 weeks on the beach. They've had two de facto bye weeks going into this because they pretty much knew they were going to be the 7 seed. If I'm Green Bay, I'm licking my lips, man. Chicago didn't look too good against Detroit at the weekend. I can't make out this Chicago team. They're good, but I just don't know if they're going to show up when it really, really matters. So I don't think this is a foregone conclusion. Usually when the 2 seed meets the 7 seed, it is a foregone conclusion. But I really this one I will go with Chicago because of the Parsons injury. I just think that's big enough to knock down Green Bay. But I'm not as high on Chicago as maybe some other people are, but I'll go with them to get the job done.
James, when Caleb Williams and that defense play at their finest, Chicago can beat anyone. This is a little bit of additional, obviously, motivation for both sides here, being an NFC North rivalry, one of the biggest rivalries in the NFL. What are you kind of leaning in this one?
Yeah, I'm just glad, firstly, that the Eagles lost also yesterday so that the Bears could keep the 2 seed and keep that matchup, because I just wanted this game. It's going to be great. Round 3 of the season. I'm going with Connor as well. I'm going with the Bears here. Not down to the fact that I think that they're much higher level than the Packers. Just that Micah Parsons injury, like you said, and also having a couple of weeks off can be good sometimes, but it can also stagnate your team. And we saw yesterday, the Bears didn't exactly play everyone the whole game. Like, we didn't see Luther Burden really at all. We didn't until the end, until they needed to come back. Didn't see Colson Loveland much until the second half. So I think they had a little bit of rest as well, and they almost came back into that game. And Detroit fights hard every single week. They wanted to win that. So I wouldn't hold it against the Bears that they lost that one. I think they have just enough to get over the Packers.
Something then is the big one as well, because you have the Jaguars and Bills in the AFC, and then the Eagles and 49ers in the NFC, respectively, at 6 o'clock Irish time and 9:30 Irish time. Not just two. I mean, that Bills Jaguars game, the way both teams have been playing recently, especially the Jaguars, I actually fancied the Jaguars in this one. I think just the way Trevor Lawrence is playing at the highest level he's ever played in his career. He's really clicking under Liam Cohen. He has so many weapons at his disposal. He's playing really, really high-level football, and I just think this is going to be an absolute barnstormer on Sunday evening.
I was surprised this is the early game and not the late-night game, to be honest. I'm delighted because it makes it more viewable for us, but I was really surprised. I will go with the hot hand in Jacksonville. They haven't lost in I don't know how long. Since I was in Berlin, I think. It's been a long, long, long time, and the Buffalo Bills have been ropey. So I'll go with the hot hand. I will go with the Jacksonville Jaguars to get this done.
Especially with James, when you have an injured Josh Allen come in. He's been dealing with that foot injury for a couple of weeks now. He wasn't 100% the last time he started the game. He only played one snap there. Obviously, he's going to have just to give him a bit of time to recuperate as well. But like, are you riding the hot hand going into this one, or what are you kind of thinking?
I don't know. I just can't see a season where we have no Chiefs and no Ravens that Josh Allen goes out on the first go. I just can't see that happening. I know the Jags are superb, the best rushing defense in the league in terms of yards allowed per game, which also hinders Buffalo because they rely on James Cook a lot. But I just think this is a huge stage. Josh Allen, yes, he's injured, but he got the rest yesterday. And I just think that Buffalo is full of confidence after that win. No better team to play when you need a bit of confidence than the Jets. But I think the Bills.
The Jets the Jets didn't have a single interception all season. They had like something like 600 passes thrown against them. Not a single interception. That is just Aaron Glenn. I'm shocked Aaron Glenn wasn't fired today, to be honest with you. He has to go. The entire organization just needs to be nuked. Just get rid of the Jets and rebuild that team because they're just absolute dog shit through and through. They are, though. I apologize. Like, any Jets fan listening to me is going to agree. I think they've just been the worst franchise.
That's been terrible.
And they had the whole thing, and we're going to off on a tangent here now and apologize, but they had the thing a few weeks ago where they offered a kicker that, you come on and kick for a chance to win some money, and a professional soccer player won it. and they wouldn't let her kick. Now they went back, they reneged and actually let her kick in the end, but that just shows you how much of a poverty franchise they are, right? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, Woody Johnson at the helm.
Oh my God.
Things are not good, and also I will say the amount of draft picks they have coming up in the next year or two. The number 2 pick this year. Are you really going to give Aaron Glenn that? Are you going to let him start building this team? No, he needs to go get yourself a better head coach.
No, they need a new head coach there in the Meadowlands there in New Jersey. Eagles 49ers. We already talked about the Steelers Texans. I'm just pissed that that's the late game on Tuesday morning because I have to get up for work about 4 hours later. Unless if I do stay up, it'll be a significant lack of sleep. So we won't go into that one too much. Eagles 49ers to finish it off, lads. Eagles defensive front seven has been playing incredibly all season. If the offense can, pardon my language, get the finger out and get back to last year's kind of form, Saquon Barkley could find his running lanes. Jalen Hurts could find his groove. The weapons at his disposal. I mean, I think you would have to like the Eagles in this one, Connor, just based on the way that the 49ers last game went as well.
Well, Philadelphia also had a bye week this week, basically, which they threw, which is ironic because they could have had the 2 seed, but they chose to sit a lot of guys and they ended up losing to Washington. This is the hardest fixture to call this weekend. I really don't know which way I'm going to go, and I have to go one way. So I will take the home side. I'll go Philadelphia. But against my better judgment, man, I don't know. This is the hardest one to call. The next 2 are straightforward, but this one, my goodness, I'll go Philly.
This one was on my mind today a lot. Like I initially last night when all the games were said and done, my instinct was to be like 49ers after the last few weeks. But the more I thought about it today, the more I was like, that was such a big game for them to lose against the Seahawks, and now they have to travel to Philly and possibly
they have to go into the link, like one of the toughest environments in the NFL to play in. Those fans
it's
really get loud.
Minnesota last year when they missed out on the chance to get the 1 seed, and they ended up going straight out to LA, and you're like, oh my goodness, it's going to be one and done. And it was like if the Niners got the 1 seed, they had 2 home games before their home Super Bowl. It's like they're probably going to the Super Bowl, and I was like, they might be one and done. They genuinely might be.
Yeah, I'm going Eagles here too. Going with the home team.
Well, look, and then obviously we talked about the Patriots and Chargers as well. Yeah. I think just the way that that offensive line has been, like, if the Chargers had a healthy offensive line this year, again with some of the weapons down there in Los Angeles with the Chargers, this could be a very, very different outcome. But I just think it's going to be too much of a task for the Chargers and Justin Herbert to get a win, especially when they're playing in Foxborough as well in the cold. It's going to be a tough one.
If they had a cohesive unit at the offensive line spot, yes, but they don't, so it won't be comfortable for New England.
I think it's going to be pretty close, to be honest. And I would have leaned almost on the Chargers if they hadn't played the way they did the last couple of weeks. I know they rested players yesterday, but it was the Texans game that sealed it for me that, this Patriots team is going to win. But I do think it still will be close because I think Justin Herbert can still get it done. The Patriots pass rush isn't anything amazing. Their red zone defense is abysmal. So if they do get down the field, I think the Chargers could put a few touchdowns on it, but that Patriots offense is way too high-powered. I think could be maybe a 10-point game.
Well, it is going to be very interesting to see how this weekend's slate of wildcard round games plays out. Lots of big games in there. I mean, look, Jaguars Bills, as I said, that's probably going to be my favorite game apart from Steelers Texans, which are more than likely. No, I'll be up. I'll be running on 3 hours sleep, no problem. I've only stayed up once
I presume you're taking Pittsburgh.
We need to know.
I kind of have to, don't I? I kind of have to take Pittsburgh, don't I? I mean,
you can be impartial. You can be realistic.
No, I'm gonna. I just honestly, my head says the Texans. My heart says Pittsburgh. It's gonna be like that Texans defense. I mean, if the Steelers do what they've done all season and take 3 quarters to get some touchdowns on the board, it's gonna be Texans 100%. But if the Steelers can put all phases of the way they've played this year together into one cohesive game, I think we get past the wild card round for the first time since God knows when. and actually advance to the divisional round. And Mike Tomlin lives to fight another day. But look, either way, it's look, if we can just kind of exercise the demons of years gone by, and get past the wildcard round into the divisional round, look, that's an improvement, isn't it?
It would be an improvement, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Certainly.
I think Houston will win.
Yeah, it would definitely be an improvement, but I have to go with Houston here. I'd be surprised if the Steelers score more than 10 points in this game. Seriously, this Houston defense is unbelievable. And yeah, it's just...
Oh, God. What a depressing note to finish the show on, James. Thanks
I
for
knew
that.
you were trying to avoid it. That's why I had to point it out.
Thanks, lads, for putting me on the spot. No, fuck it. I'm going Pittsburgh in this one. I'm going Pittsburgh. I'm nailing my colours to the mast. I'm all in. I've talked enough shit about this team this year. No, I'm going all in at the Steelers. I'm going to be the lone wolf in this scenario and go Steelers. And on that note, we are going to wrap up because we've been talking shy for almost an hour now. So I do apologize if anyone stuck with us to the end, listening or watching. We do appreciate it. We do appreciate your support all season. Everyone who's reached out has gotten in touch, who sent messages. Look, we just love talking football. So thank you to everyone who's been involved and been with us this year. Thank you again to our sponsors, Print My Pint, for their continued support. Do make sure to check them out on their website and social media if you are having an event in the coming weeks. They are a sound bunch of lads. We are still waiting to hear if we have got credentials for San Francisco or not yet. Hopefully have an update for you all later this week. In the meantime, James, thank you very much. Connor, thank you very much. We might be back later on this week, but if not, lads, I'll talk to you very soon.